So bread is something that can seem really intimidating and complicated to make, but it's really not that hard. So I'm going to show you how to make French country bread, which is probably one of the easiest breads you can make. It doesn't have very many ingredients and it's really straightforward. I adapted this recipe from the Great Book of Bread by Moon, and they have a lot of really great, as the name implies, bread recipes in there. But they have some funny ideas about how you should combine your wet and dry ingredients and some other things. So I'm going to show you the way that works best for me. So you're going to need 4 ingredients to make this bread. First, you need yeast. I use active dry yeast, but there are lots of different kinds of yeast, and really any of them will work. And if you're not sure that you want to commit to baking with yeast, you don't have to buy a jar like this. There will be individual packets in the baking aisle, and you can just buy 1 or 2 of those. One packet is 2.5, 2.25, somewhere in there, teaspoons. So for some recipes, you might need more than a packet. For this recipe, you'll need more than a packet. It calls for a tablespoon of yeast. So you'd have to buy 2 packets for half the recipe. So the first thing I'm going to do, I've already done. You need to measure out 1.5 cups of warm water. You want to use a liquid measuring cup because you'll get more accurate measurements than trying to use a measuring cup for solids. And there's some temperature that it's supposed to be, but I don't own a thermometer, so I couldn't tell you what it is. Basically, the water should feel warm, but not hot when you touch it. And that way the yeast will be able to grow, but it won't be so hot that it kills the yeast. That's kind of the goal. So I'm going to pour this into this giant bowl, and I'm going to end up adding everything to this giant bowl. So you want a fairly big one. And to the bowl, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of active dry yeast. And I'm just going to kind of sprinkle it on top of the water. And it starts out floating. I think it would be more successful to move the camera. See, the yeast is kind of floating on top. But we'll stir it in. And actually, I'm going to add a little bit of sugar too. Now, you don't actually need to use sugar, but basically it gives the yeast something to eat. So the yeast will grow faster and you don't have to wait around as long. So I'm just going to add, I don't know, maybe 1/4 teaspoon of sugar, just a little bit. And then I'm going to stir the yeast and the sugar into the water. And it'll turn a kind of unattractive beige color. And there will be a couple little lumps probably floating on top. Now you just kind of have to wait for the yeast to start to grow and form colonies. And I'll show you what that looks like. So if you want to step away and do something else, you can wait maybe 10 minutes. It might not take that long, but 10 minutes is generally a pretty good rule of thumb on waiting for yeast to proof to show you that it's alive. Because if when you do this nothing happens and you don't see any yeast colonies on top, then your yeast is probably dead and your bread won't rise. So you need to start over with different yeast. But hopefully that won't happen to you. That's why we proof.